Hey ladies and gentlemen, this is Miss Rivers and I'm going to be showing you how you are supposed to be doing your Quindew quests. A lot of you guys have been submitting them in 8 minutes, 12 minutes, 10 minutes. I'm going to go through this quest at my own pace to show you how you should be going through the quest at your own pace. You need to take your time and you need to be very careful about what you are reading and being very careful about what you are being asked to do. Go slowly. Make sure you understand what you are supposed to be doing. So this is the quest that I'm going to do for you guys. It's why do adults think video games are bad? Remember, you are on a mission to become a stronger, more skilled reader. You will be challenged along your journey and rewarded for your commitment and determination. Effort is the key to your success. Your overall score and ranking will climb as you successfully complete levels. You are in control of your learning. The more you practice, the more you learn, and the more you learn, the more you will achieve. Have fun. I did a tutorial in person in class for all of my students today that were in my second, third, and first academic. If you weren't here today, you missed this, and it's really important that you watch it. And if you were in my fourth academic, I'm very sorry to say we were unfortunately not able to do this tutorial together because we ran out of time today. So this is for you guys especially. Please make sure that you're watching this tutorial. So our quest is called Why Do Adults Think Video Games Are Bad? I'm going to hit continue. And the first thing that it's going to give me is the cherry game. Yes, the cherry game. You are going to guess a word that relates to the title. Now, we haven't read this article yet. We haven't even looked at it. So you can't honestly expect yourself to get all of these right every time. But please don't worry if you don't get any of them right, or even if you only get one or two of them right, it's not going to count against your grade in any way. It's just a fun little game to get you thinking about what you might be reading. You're trying to kind of guess what the main idea might be. So we're just going to read this title, Why Do Adults Think Video Games Are Bad? So we might type adults. Oh, adults isn't in there. Children like video games because they are fun and because they can be challenging. You have to solve problems, work out the best moves for your character, and decide how to use your equipment and supplies in the best possible way. Making all these decisions can be exciting. Many worry that playing video games might have a bad effect on the way their child behaves. For example, if a video game has lots of fighting in it, oh, I didn't read it quick enough. Sorry about it. It went away. But that's okay. If I get one more word wrong, that passage will come back and it will stay. So hopefully I can kind of guess some words within that passage to see if I have any. So I'm just going to type in games. Maybe this will work. And it did. I got 5 cherries. So I'm going to type in video. So I didn't get it. But the good news is the passage came back, and now I can kind of guess some words from the passage. So I'm going to type in violent because I know that people say video games are violent all the time. And unfortunately, that wasn't one. Puzzles, teamwork, concerns, benefits, playing, and parents. Oh, I should have said parents, not adults. So I only earned 5 cherries, but you know what? That's 5 more than I had. I'm going to go ahead and click next. And this one tells me to mark all unfamiliar words in the text. Then we will create a personal dictionary for you. This is so important because as you select these words, they start adding them down here. So for example, if I click however, it's going to add it to my dictionary and it's going to tell me what that word means. So if you're reading this article and you come across words that you're not familiar with, or you're like, I don't really understand what that sentence means, ask yourself, why don't I understand what the sentence that I just read meant? And if it's because there's a word in there that you're unfamiliar with, click it, figure out what that word means, and then see if that sentence makes more sense to you. I'm going to read this through to you guys, and as I go along, I'm just going to click some words that I think might be beneficial to have later, maybe words that I'm not super familiar with, maybe words that I am. We'll see what happens. But notice I can't click this I'm done button until an appropriate amount of time has passed for me to read this entire text. Please don't rush through this and don't just sit around and wait. I don't care how fast you can get through Quindew. I'm not looking to see who can do this the quickest. I'm looking to see who can be efficient in what they're doing. So I'm going to take my time and I'm going to read this. Why do adults think video games are bad? Parents and children can have different ideas when it comes to video games. Children like video games because they're fun and because they can be challenging. You have to solve problems, work out the best moves for your character, and decide how to use your equipment and supplies in the best possible way. Making all of these decisions can be exciting. Parents want to make sure that their children are safe and healthy. Because of this, they notice different things about video games. Many worry that playing video games might have a bad effect on the way their child behaves. For example, if a video game has lots of fighting in it, they worry that playing it will encourage their child to be violent. They are concerned that their child might always choose to play a video game instead of playing outside and getting exercise. Even though you sit still while you read a book, they know that kids can develop good reading skills and learn a lot. Many adults aren't so sure that kids can learn anything educational from video games. Some adults think that spending too much time with animated characters is unhealthy for kids. They know it's important for kids to spend time with real people and learn good social skills needed for the real world. What do experts say? Experts think playing video games can have good and bad effects on kids. New research shows that there are lots of benefits. One good thing is the video games that children play today often encourage them to work in teams, cooperate to help each other, and work in teams, cooperate, and to help each other. This is because games today are often designed for multiple players, not like old-fashioned video games that were mostly designed for one player. However, children who are obsessed with video games and play them for a long time can get really competitive and can often try to win at all costs. Experts aren't sure yet, but they have real concerns that this might lead to kids acting like this in real life too. One thing you might like to know is that kids who regularly play video games often get higher grades in maths, science, and reading tests. This is because games require players to solve puzzles. You won't get higher marks playing any video games, just those that require the player to solve these kinds of puzzles. Doing more of the good and less of the bad. It is important for kids to think about what types of games they pick. Make sure all of your games aren't fighting games. Instead, choose more games where you need to solve puzzles. These are fun and can help with your schoolwork. Your parents will be much happier about that. Also, think about whether the fighting games you play are affecting how you play with your friends in real life. Only you will really know if they are having a bad effect. If they are, you might want to change the games you play. Why not ask your parents to play a problem-solving game with you? This will help your parents see that video games are not all bad. It is also important that kids and adults don't spend too much time using a screen. This means kids not spending all of their time on technology and parents not always checking their phones and screens. What we want to aim for is adults and kids who can spend some of their time on their screens, but also enjoying other kinds of interests and spending time with family and friends. So this was an article that we read about video games. It's explaining to us why adults think video games are bad. So I'm going to hit I'm done. And then we're going to ask ourselves, how many paragraphs does this text have? So I'm going to hit I'm ready. I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is a title, so it doesn't count. 7, 8, 9, 10, a title. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So I think there are 16. Sometimes I miscount, but we're going to check. And we are correct. So you're just going to go through and count the paragraphs. Even though the first paragraph of that text was just one line, it still counts. The only things that don't count typically that you're going to see are going to be the titles, the subtitles. If you get this wrong the first time, you'll click try again, and then these tools will open up. And if you click this paragraph option, it'll actually number the paragraphs for you so you can kind of see, well, how did I miscount? What did I count as a paragraph that wasn't actually a paragraph? And it'll just tell you what it is, and you'll be able to type in that number, okay? What type of text is this? Type a one-word answer on the line below. Now remember, when you guys did the tutorial for Quindew, we talked about text types, and Quindew actually told you that they're only ever going to ask you to tell them what the type of the text is with 3 different options. So you'll have 3 options to choose from. You'll have the narrative option, informational, or argumentative. Remember, narratives are stories. They're kind of told to us based on what characters in the story are doing. It has a plot structure. There's usually a theme. We see a lot of those literary elements that we're learning about in these tutorials. In narratives. Sorry, we learn a lot about the where you will see a lot of the literary elements in a narrative, like characters and setting and theme and all of those things. Informational is purely when we're given information about a specific topic and it's not biased. We're not getting someone's opinion. We're not getting someone's personal thoughts and feelings about a particular topic. And then we have argumentative. Argumentative is when we do have those opinions. We do have someone trying to convince us of something. So narrative, informational, or argumentative. I'm going to click I'm ready, and I'm going to briefly look at this again. And in my head, right off the bat, I already know this is not a narrative because I don't have characters, I don't have a theme, I don't have anything like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and focus on determining whether this is informational or argumentative. And I'm going to be completely honest, I could see it being either. But I do think that it is a little bit more informational than persuasive because I don't feel like the author of this really has an opinion. Maybe they do. I could kind of see it in this bottom section right here. Up top, we kind of get the views of parents and children. Why do kids like video games? Why do parents not like video games? What do the experts say? And then down here, I do kind of think that the author is trying to kind of convince us of something. It's important for kids to think about the games they pick. Why not ask your parents to play a problem-solving game with you so that they see that they're not all bad? So I could definitely see this being informational or argumentative. But the good thing is that I get 2 guesses with Quindew. So it's not going to tell me I'm wrong as long as I have a good second guess in my back pocket. So I'm going to go on a limb here and I'm going to say informational because I do believe it is just giving me information. I don't think it's trying to convince me of anything, and I'm correct. Even though that bottom section was like, oh, you should do this and this and this, it wasn't really designed to convince you that video games were bad or that video games weren't. It was just kind of designed to tell you that there are different kinds of games and not all video games are viewed as bad, and some, even though some are. So we were just given information. So please notice how slow I'm going and how I'm thinking through these questions. What type of text structure is used in the first section? Type a single word answer on the line below. If you don't know what a text structure is, you're going to struggle with this section. So we're going to go to paragraphs 3 through 6. So 1, 2, 3. So we're going to start here, 4, 5, and 6. And we're going to look. Parents want to make sure their children are safe and healthy. Because of this, they notice different things about video games. Many worry that playing video games might have a bad effect on the way their child behaves. For example, if a video game has lots of fighting, they worry that playing it will encourage their child to be violent. They are concerned that their child might always choose to play a video game instead of playing outside and getting exercise. Even though you sit still when you're reading a book, they know that kids could still develop good reading skills and learn a lot. Many adults aren't so sure that kids can learn anything from educational video games. Sometimes adults think that spending too much time with animated characters is unhealthy for kids. They know it's important for kids to spend time with real people and learn good social skills needed for the real world. Now, if you don't know what a text structure is at all, or you don't know the different types of text structures, you're going to struggle because you're not even going to know what word to select. The good thing is once you get this question from Quindew once about text structures, you're going to get information to write down. You're going to get 8 different types of text structures to write down to select from later. So when you answer this question, if you get it wrong the first time, that's okay. Use the you'll see that you'll get a tip in a minute. It'll ask you if you want a tip, I believe. And then it will tell you what the different types of text structures are. So for me, I might think this is a description. That's a text structure. I know it's kind of describing to me how parents feel, and I didn't get it correct. So I'm going to come over here and hit try again, and I'm going to use my tools. Unfortunately for me, I don't get that tip that I was telling you about. After you do a few tutorials, that one will show up, but I don't have it yet. So I'm going to view this tutorial, and then it's going to tell me as Mr. Lemaster talks. I'm just going to let it run in the background. He's going to give me somewhere down here, right here, the text structures that I can select from. So I'm either going to say my answer is cause and effect, where writers show how an action or idea leads to a certain outcome. I could see that. We're going to talk about classification and division. This is where writers organize, group, and categorize people, places, and things. Not really sure that we are categorizing things here. Compare and contrast. Writers show how something or someone is similar or not similar. Definition is when writers explain the meaning of a word or concept in great detail. Description, this is the one that I selected, and this is when writers use vivid or descriptive language. I was going for description, like they're giving a description of how the adults feel. And then there's exemplification. This is when writers list examples, not a simple list of 3 items. They give a little explanation of each. So I think it could be exemplification or cause and effect. So I'm going to look at exemplification or cause and effect. I'm going to keep those in my mind, but I'm going to keep going. There's number 7, which is narration. Writers tell stories as a way to illustrate an idea. We're not really telling a story. We don't have any characters. And then process is when writers provide steps or explains how to do something or show how something works. So I have these 8 to pick from, and I'm just going to come up here and I'm going to go back to cause and effect, and I'm just going to kind of look at it really quickly. Writers show how an action or idea leads to a certain outcome. I could kind of see this one, but I could also kind of see exemplification, where we're giving a lot of examples on how on like why parents think video games are bad. So I'm going to read this very carefully. So this right here kind of gives me the idea that this is cause and effect. It says parents want to make sure their children are safe and healthy. Because of this, because parents want to make sure their kids are safe and healthy, they notice different things about video games. Many worry that playing video games might have a bad effect. They are concerned that the child might always want to choose to play the video game, and sometimes they think that they're playing too much with the animated characters. So I'm going to choose exemplification, and I'm going to check, and we're correct. That first section was explaining all the different ways, all the different scenarios that parents think about video games in. So we're going to hit next. Mark the central idea in the text. Mark the entire sentence. If you don't know what central idea is, you might struggle with this, but that's okay because, now we have that tip button that I was telling you about. So the tip tool did show up. If you don't know what the central idea even means, the central idea is like the main topic. If someone were to ask you, find one sentence in this text that really just tells me what the whole thing is about, that's what you're looking for. So we're going to look, and we're typically going to look towards the top. Okay. Parents and children can have different ideas when it comes to video games. I think that that's a very good central idea because we are going to talk about what kids think about video games, and we are going to talk about what parents think about video games. So our central idea is usually going to be somewhere towards the top anyway. And for this specific one, I'm just going to go with the first sentence right here because it is a really good explanation of what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the different ideas that parents and children have about video games. So I'm going to check my answer, and I'm not right, and that's okay. I'm going to try again, and now my tools are unlocked, and I'm going to be able to use these tools to help me out. So let me tell you what Miss Rivers does when she uses her tools, okay? I am first going to select the paragraph tool because that's going to number the paragraphs for me, and it's going to make it very easy for me to see where certain information is. What do I mean by that? When I click tip, it might tell me the answer's in paragraph 2 or the answer's in paragraph whatever. And I don't want to have to waste my time counting, so I'm just going to use my cherries because I have them. So I'm going to hit tip, and it says the answer is in the section, What do experts say? The first section of this text provides background information. Specifically, it lists what parents don't like about video games. You're looking for an idea that is supported by the rest of the article. Oh, so I shouldn't have picked the top one because that's really just talking about what parents think. Okay, fair enough. Reread the topic sentences in each paragraph, and if necessary, reread each supporting paragraph to learn what the paragraphs are about. You are looking for a single sentence. Remember to mark the entire sentence. Remember when we did the tutorial together, we had to highlight all the way from the capital letter to the punctuation mark, kind of like this. So when we try to select your answer, we need to make sure that's what we're doing. So what do the experts say? Here we go. We're going to look for a sentence that explains what this is about. Why do adults think that video games are bad? Experts think that playing video games can have good and bad effects on kids. New research shows that there are a lot of benefits. One good thing about the video games that children play today often encourage them to work in teams, cooperate, and help each other. Okay, so as I'm kind of going through this, I am getting the idea that they're explaining to me the good things about video games and the bad things about video games. So I might select this sentence right here because we're talking about how video games can have good and bad effects. This is talking about a good effect, this is talking about a bad effect, and this is talking about a good effect. So I think that the main idea of this, or the central idea of this, is that video games are not all bad, but they can have good and bad effects on kids. So I selected experts think playing video games can have good and bad effects on kids. I'm going to check my answer, and I got it right. So even though I got it wrong the first time, I'm still going to get points for this question. I'm going to keep going. Video games can have benefits if they have the player solve. Oh my goodness, they were talking about having them solve what where I just was? Solve puzzles. So I'm going to type in the word puzzles. It's right here in the text. I remember reading that kids are going to solve puzzles in some video games, and I knew where to go because I just read it from the previous question that I was at. I'm going to check my answer. I got it. I didn't have to think on my own for that one. I just had to remember what I read. So I went right back to that section and I found the answer, puzzles, and I typed it in. I didn't think of anything on my own. It was just right there in front of me. I'm going to hit next, and it's going to tell me to mark the second subtitle in the text. So I'm going to hit I'm ready, and I know what the second subtitle is because I know what subtitles are. This up here is the actual title of the text. This is the first subtitle. This is the second subtitle. So I'm going to select the whole thing and I'm going to check my answer and I'm correct. I'm going to hit next. Which paragraph talks about limiting screen time for everyone in the household? Type a single paragraph number on the line below. So we're not going to be highlighting here and we're not going to be typing in a word here or an explanation. We're going to type one number. So I'm going to hit I'm ready. And unfortunately, even though earlier I spent some cherries to number my paragraphs, those numbers have disappeared because we're on a different question. So I'm going to go through and find where I see them talking about screen time for everybody, not just screen time for kids, but screen time for everybody. Up here, this is just what parents don't like about video games. It's just a little introduction to what the text is about. Down here, this is what the experts say, but remember, it's talking about the good and the bad things about video games. So now we're going to do more of the good and less of the bad. And I think somewhere in here, I remember reading that it talked about kids not spending all their time on their screens and parents not always checking their phones and their screens too. So I'm just going to look through and read here really quickly. And I'm going to kind of just skim and I'm going to look for the word screen time. I'm going to look for some screen time. Just reading really quickly. Right here. What we want to aim for is adults and kids who could spend some of their time on their screens, but also enjoying other kinds of interest and spending time with family and friends. That's kind of talking about everybody not being on their screens. I could see that one, but it doesn't really talk about limiting screen time. It's just some of the time. What about up here? It's important that kids and adults don't spend too much time. So because if they're not going to spend too much time, we are limiting time. This means that kids are not spending all their time on technology and parents are not always checking their phones and screens. I remember that we had 16 paragraphs, I believe. This has to be paragraph 15 because it's right above the last paragraph. So I'm going to type in paragraph 15 because I think that's the answer. And I'm correct. And I got 3 in a row. I'm going to hit next. And then this last question asks me to mark the textual detail, mark the sentence that best supports the following inference. The inference is just kind of an idea, it's an assumption that can be made based off of what you read. So you infer that this statement might be true based on what you read. So it's a good idea to have balance in your life. So we're going to be looking for a sentence that kind of demonstrates or models the idea that having balance in your life is good. I'm going to hit I'm ready. And I'm going to look for a sentence that talks about finding balance in my life. If I have no idea where to start, you best believe I'm going to start reading this again. I'm not going to read it all the way out loud to you just for the sake of time for this video, but you should read it out loud to yourself. So we're looking for a way to bring balance in your life. Why is it a good idea to have balance? I could kind of see this one. What we want to aim for is adults and kids who can spend some of their time on their screens, but also enjoying other kinds of interests and spending time with family and friends. This is talking about balance in a way, but it doesn't necessarily. I don't think it'll be the strongest choice. But if I can't find anything else, this is what I'm going to fall back on as my first guess. Okay. Yeah, so I think that one down there might be my best guess. So I'm just going to pick it right here. And I'm going to try it. And I was correct. So I didn't know if it was going to be the best one. In my head, I thought, maybe I read something stronger. I went back and I checked, and I didn't find anything stronger. So I fell back on what I believed to be at least an option. If that was incorrect, if there had been a better one out there and I was incorrect, even if I was so convinced that the one that I selected was the answer, if they had told me it was wrong, I wouldn't have freaked out. I wouldn't have worried. I would have hit try again, and then I would have come down here and I would have used my tools until I was able to answer this question correctly. I'm going to hit next. And then I am done with my Quindew for the day. I'm going to collect my blue diamonds, and then it's going to ask me about a new challenge. And of course, I'm going to accept it. If I complete one quest, I'm going to earn 100 diamonds. So the next time I complete a quest, they're going to give me 100 more diamonds. So I'm going to hit accept. And I'm going to look through all the things that I received. I got 1,000 points. I think that's awesome. It doesn't show you the grade on your end that I see, but I will always make sure you know what it is because they'll go in Power School. So you'll see your grades in Power School, which is why it's so important that you take your time with these quests because they are graded and they do influence your grade. They're a great reading quiz. If I'm like, all right, guys, we're going to do a Quindew quest today and we're just going to have a little pop reading quiz, this will show me, can you take your time and do your best and answer questions about what you're reading? There was not a single question in this quest that I had to come up with an answer for all on my own with outside knowledge. If I didn't know it at the first try, like the text structures question that we did, analyze the text structure. If you look, I got 50 points here because I got it right on the second try, not the first try. So you're going to want to make sure that you're doing your best with the first guess. And even if it's wrong, you're taking your time, you're spending your cherries, you're buying tips and tutorials to help you learn about what you don't know. If you come up to me and Ms. Rivers are asking me about text structures and I don't understand what text structures are, I know Quindew's going to tell you. You have to use those tips and tutorials. It's not about finishing the Quindew. It's about getting it right. Do your best and take your time. I am going to look and see about how long I've been recording. I've been recording for about 32 minutes. If you were in my first academic class when I did the Quindew for you and I recorded it, but then the sound didn't work, which is why I'm doing this one now. You saw it took me about 33 minutes to get a Quindew quest done. And if you were in any of my other classes that watched me complete a quest today or helped me complete a quest today to go through this with you guys, you noticed it took us about 30 minutes to get through it. And I told you guys, I've been reading for a long time. And it takes me 30 minutes to just go through these quests. And I spend the cherries, I buy the tips, I buy the tutorials, I get help from the program itself because I want to be a better reader too. Take your time and do your best.